One of the best-loved voices of British opera, the Welsh baritone Sir Geraint Evans, looks back over his highly successful career and recalls some of the roles he played during his 36 years as a singer.
The Prince of Wales was certainly not going to miss the last performance on the 4th of June 1984 of one of the greatest singers in the history of British opera.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if there were such a thing as the elixir of love, that every morning we could take a spoonful and give our love towards our fellow men? But tonight, alas, the bottle is empty. But my heart is full of the elixir of love to you all. And the last things that I sing in this opera is Amici, addio. Thank you.
The audience at Covent Garden that last night could have been replaced 1,000 times by people as affectionate, and by audiences at the famous opera houses in Europe and America, entranced by the passionate perfection of the Welsh baritone's performances over 36 years. The same cheering has met him in Vienna, Salzburg, Paris, New York, San Francisco. This was the last time he would hear it. It was almost as moving an evening for us as it must have been for him. The generosity of the applause always matched the generosity of his performances. The best of conductors always said that the theatrical performer from Kilfynydd always sang all the notes. Impeccable and inventive himself, he generously encouraged his colleagues. Sir Geraint and Lady Brenda had been married the whole of his long, distinguished career. Born within yards of each other in the blackest days of the Rhondda Valley in the 20s. She a schoolteacher, he beginning work, dressing shop windows at 14. And the career ends, honoured by royalty, Lord Harlech, the Earl Gowrie, ex-prime ministers. It was a memorable party, and those of us lucky enough to be there knew that we were there as emblems for all who'd ever heard him bring his unique humanity to the roles he'd played in the operas of the great composers, but above all, of Mozart's.
I know that.
Is this your family?
Yes, Alan. This is my son and daughter-in-law, Susan, Alan, and Hugh, my youngest, yes.
Geraint, you've had some time to reflect on that remarkable evening. I mean, what are your principal reactions now to it, to ending your career there?
Well, I haven't come down to earth yet. I know it's time since it happened. But that performance was another performance. I didn't think that it was my last performance last night at Covent Garden. I did the performance as I'd always done throughout my career. But the one that I kept my faculties absolutely correct. But the one thing that absolutely shook me rigid was when I heard the Welsh national anthem being sung at the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden. That really hit me.
And by the whole cast?
And by the whole cast.
Yes. And well, we're going to play that at the very end of the programme. But let's look now. We've got here some of the costumes representing, well, just a few of your most famous roles. Let's go and have a look first at Don Giovanni, the Leporello, which I suppose you must have sung hundreds of times. Now, it strikes me looking at this costume. I always think of you as Leporello as being dirty, seedy, horrible.
Well, actually, this is the costume that I wear at the end of the first act. It's the costume that is worn in the palace with the Don and what have you. And the costume I wear practically throughout the opera is a dirty, filthy costume with soup stains down, you know, down
Yeah.
the front. And Leporello's not a coward. He wants to imitate the Don. He loves the Don, he hates the Don, and the Don treats him like a dog.
And you played that role much more powerfully in that sense than anybody else I've seen. Now, do you think it was because that was in the music? That's what Mozart meant.
Well, I felt that, you see, the thing is that I never played it in a comic way, although comedy comes out of the situation, between the rapport between Don Giovanni and Leporello. I never lifted the tablecloth at the end of the last act and, you know, everything like that. I played it rather serious. I played him that I had the left-offs of Don Giovanni, whatever it was, the meal, his women,
Yeah.
you know, and
Well,
I created that type of character.
We have a recording made a long time ago, what, 15 years perhaps, of you singing the catalogue aria to Donna Elvira. You know, you recite to her, poor girl, all the conquests of Don Giovanni.
Yes, 1003. How the heck Don Giovanni managed that, I don't know, but there we are.
E consolatevi, non siete voi, non foste e non sarete nella prima, nell'ultima. Guardate, questo non picciol libro è tutto pieno di nomi di sue belle, ogni villa, ogni borgo, ogni paese è testimon di sue donnesche imprese. Madamina, il catalogo è questo, delle belle che vuoi far mio, un catalogo lieti ho fatto io. Osservate, leggete con me, osservate, leggete con me. In Italia 640, in Almania 231, 100 in Francia, Turchia 91, ma in Spagna son già 1.300. 1.300. Ma per queste contadine, cameriere cittadine, contentesse baronesse, marchesane, principesse e madonne, donni, galo, donni, parma, donni età, donni, parma, donni età. In Italia 640, in Almagna 221, 100 in Francia, in Turchia 91, ma in Spagna son già 1.300. 1.300. Ma per queste contadine, cameriere, cittadine, van contesse, baronesse, marchesane, principesse, e van donne, donni, galo, donni, forma, donni età, donni forma, donni età, donni forma, donni età.
Geraint, I often wondered, you sang the part so often in Don Giovanni, and given your voice and you know, your ability to command the stage, why didn't you sing Don Giovanni?
Well, actually, I felt that my bottom was too near the ground. I needed longer legs, needed to be taller, more elegant, really. But I did try it.
Did you?
I went to Dublin to try it out. And I must tell you, in one performance, the Commendatore was sung by Bruce Dargaville, a wonderful bass. And in this particular part in the last scene, where the Commendatore says to Don Giovanni, repent, kneel and pray and repent, he missed his cue. And my answer to him was no. Well, when he missed his cue, I sang no. And I sang another no when I was supposed to sing it. In fact, I did about 8 or 9 no's when the voice from the gallery shouted out, for God's sake, sing yes and get off the bloody stage. So that was me. I thought that was my lot as Don Giovanni.
Let's stay with Mozart. Magic Flute, another of your most celebrated roles,
Yes.
Papageno, the bird catcher. Is this costume you wore?
This is the costume that I wore at Covent Garden, and actually I was lucky enough to have very great designers to design my costumes. There was the Leporello was Franco Zeffirelli's costume, and I remember John Piper's costume, and actually Oliver Messer's costume. The first time I sang it at Blind One was a wonderful costume, and I always remember asking him, "May take the hat off, pretty hat." You see, it gives you that cocky effect. And I asked Oliver, he had a tail like this with ostrich feathers. I said, "Oliver, when I see Papagena for the first time, is it possible I can have a tape around this and bring up the tail, like, you know, showing off,
yes.
you know?" Well, when I did it on the first night, everybody roared with laughter. But it is a natural thing to
But
do.
a lot of your people, I remember one performance at Covent Garden, Klemperer was conducting,
Yes.
and it was in German.
Yes.
And you spent a lot of your time actually bringing the audience in, making jokes, wishing Merry Christmas, that kind of thing. Now, was that for a particular reason?
Well, actually, you see, Papageno has a great rapport with the audience. And always remember, in the final dress rehearsal, Klemperer saying to me, and we did it in German, "Why don't you say here, jetzt mit Variationen, now with variations?" I said, "Ja, gut, Maestro." When it came to the first night, I couldn't remember the German words. So I thought, I've got to say something, because he'd stopped the orchestra. I said, "And now with variations," and it was near Christmas. And now with variations for Christmas. Well, I mean, even Klemperer started to laugh, and the audience started to laugh at him, you know.
Well, Joe Geraint, I found, you may remember, one of the first things we did for Harlech Television,
Yes.
with your film by
Yes.
Covent Garden. And there's a duet there. You sing,
Yes.
Papageno, with Margaret Price singing Fermina. Now, let's see if you remember this.
Yes. Yes.
Die süßen Triebe mit zu
Geraint, I've never, before or since, I've never heard that duet sung as well as that. Have you?
Well, I must
What do you
say
think?
that that was near to perfection as one could possibly do it. But when I think now, that young singer, Margaret Price, doing one of her first television things,
Yes.
to think how she's got on.
17 years
well,
ago.
Absolutely. What a beautiful voice.
But you're pleased with that?
Absolutely. That's what's worthwhile, the phrasing of that, how you sing it. You know.
Sir John Falstaff.
Yes.
Verity's Falstaff.
Good old
Now,
Sir
there's
John.
an important figure in your life.
Well,
Big
actually,
figure.
this, in a way, was the turning point in my career. When I played Sir John Falstaff for the first time at Glyndebourne. This, by the way, is a Covent Garden costume designed by Franco Zeffirelli, as I said. But singing Falstaff at Glyndebourne on the first night, I'll never forget it. And everything and everyone was behind me, the chorus, the orchestra. I felt I had to win. And that was, as I say, the turning point of my
Well,
career.
have a look at this. This is a whole movie. Well, this will take you back. This is really, I think, that very period you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. There's Harvey Allen, John Lewis, Aldenoni, Juan Oncina, Aurelio Dominguez. That's the cast of the first night.
That was 1957.
Yes, absolutely. And that's Signor Boyer playing the part of Ford. A wonderful cast, a very happy cast, you know.
Was it regarded as remarkable that a Welshman or a British person should sing Falstaff?
Not at all. I didn't even think about it. Or me, or
Yeah.
the audience, or
I
what.
went over the whole musical world.
Well, I think that it caused quite a little bit of a sensation, you know. And when you see that costume, you know, do you really notice how pear-shaped it is?
Yeah.
That's an Osbert Lancaster design costume.
Well, there's a passage of you, actually, at a Falstaff, conducted, I think, by Sir George Sholty, at Covent Garden. This was in 1968.
We recorded that in Rome.
Well.
In Rome, we recorded that.
But
yes.
the production at Covent Garden
Oh, I
in
see.
1968.
Ah, yes.
There's some
Yes.
film of you
Yes.
going through this remarkable performance.
Well, making up and things.
Yeah.
That's Rosina Resnick, a great artist, no question. Absolutely the finest quickly that I ever worked with in Falstaff. And we were fortunate to be asked to go to Warsaw to play Falstaff. And really, we were the first people from the West to sing. He's warming up there, you see. We were the first people to sing from the West in Warsaw since about 1937, 38. And it was very moving and very wonderful to be with the Polish people. But, you know, one thing that when you came back to this country, one realized the value and the importance of the word freedom. As I say, they were wonderful people, but there was a sadness underlying the whole country.
Do you know, this performance you're both going through here, I mean, how long did this process of making up for the Falstaff take you?
Well, actually, I would take 2 hours. Yeah. That was a great struggle putting on my costume, I can assure you, putting on the padding. I would take me about 2 hours to make up my makeup, put the padding on, get into costume, and get the feel of the character from the feet up, you know. Very important. And when I got on stage, I was Sir John Falstaff, and I aimed at that always.
Yeah.
So that when the curtain went up, it didn't just start off cold. I was already in the performance, and we would go on stage and check.
Here we are now.
Here we are, you see, we're checking our parts, you know. There's Pistola and Bardolfo, Ken MacDonald and Bob Bowman. It's very difficult to distinguish some of these characters in
It
makeup.
must have been dreadfully hot. I mean, if the Opera House was hot itself, you know, when you were on stage there.
I would lose something like 7 pounds in an evening, and that's when I started taking industrial salt, you know. But as I say, here we are, you see, we're checking on various things, discussing perhaps something that went wrong in the last performance, and we wanted to perfect it. And this is what's so wonderful when you have good colleagues around to check various parts and to discuss what we did wrong last time. For instance, I check Bob Bowman's nose always to see that it's right, I don't pull it off. We check the distance we have between sitting on the bench. Many things.
Because it is, Geraint. Well, there's the costumes over here, all the padding.
Yes.
I mean, actually, you must have been, I mean, is it an element in opera singing? You have to be physically very strong.
Well, you see, I think that when you are dedicated, well, you'll go through hell to do the thing perfect. I remember Regina Resnick, as Mistress Quickly coming down the stairs, it was touch and go whether she fell or not because of the weight of the costumes and the trail of the costume. But this, for instance, was a padding that was created when I did it first. First of all, we used to use kapok. And kapok never moved, never breathed. But you see, this breathed. When I laughed, you know, it laughed with me. And this was something that we developed and built it like a sculptor would build. We built it around a tailor's dummy. We did the bust, we did the tummy, and we did the bottom. It's a bit worn now, but we did various cheeks on the bottom and padded the legs and right down to the feet. You know, looked at as if I had dropsy, you understand? But that was very important because for many, many, many years, since the 1900s, when they did a fat man, they built it like that. You know, whereas as the joke we used to say, why not do it as a drop pregnancy, do you know what I mean? And Osbert Lancaster was marvellous at his design.
Well, you're going since, I suppose, for what, 20 years, yours was the most celebrated Falstaff in the Western world, or in the world, as you say, we're in Poland. I think we ought to hear an excerpt from your commercial recording, which was conducted by
George Sholty.
Yes. And here, a passage from the scene outside the inn, third act.
Third act.
Siamo un po' di vino nell'acqua della
You know, there's one of the parts that I was very sorry to give up, was Sir John Falstaff. I love that man.
Well, you couldn't really call him a totally comic figure, I mean, a very serious comic figure, but you take Don Pasquale, Donizetti's Don Pasquale, which you played a lot. Is it because you wanted to play comic figures?
No, not at all. I think I started off, as I said, with Mozart, and you're stamped a little bit in some of these roles, and it's very difficult for me to get out of them. And I played many a different role in America, you know, the wicked roles, if you like. But I was asked to play Donizetti, the Don Pasquale, in Vienna in 1960, and I was unable to go. So when the time came for me to play it next, it so happened that Sir John Tooley, the administrator of Covent Garden, said, look, you've been here 25 years, why not we'll put on an opera, what would you like to do? And I said, Don Pasquale, I hadn't done it, you know, at Covent Garden or anywhere. So I did Don Pasquale, and I enjoyed playing it.
It's a costume of quite an old man. But you were young, you were young.
Yes,
well,
well, thank you, John. But the thing is this, that I played him around 50, you know, 50, 60, whereas in the period we played was rather old in those days. And this, actually, costume I wore when I did the television performance on HTV of Don Pasquale, which was a lovely...
Well, since that television production, and I hope later to talk to you about your interest in television opera and so on, but let's have a sample anyway of that production done here of Don Pasquale. With you.
Yes. Yes.
Let's have it.
Okay.
Let's
all
have
right,
some.
Yes.
Yeah.
Un poco insolito mi sento addosso, ormai resistere io più non posso, delle tappeti ascordo i malanni, mi sento giovine come a 20 anni, di carraffetta ci vieni sposina, e con i bamboli mezza dozzina, già vedo nascere, già vedo crescere, a me d'intorno vengo scherzar, vedo già nascere, vedo già crescere, a me d'intorno vengo scherzar. Vieni, si togli solito mi sento addosso, o tasto morto fa.
Did you find it easy or very difficult, Geraint, to learn these very long parts you sang?
I think that in the early days, the enthusiasm was there, and you went and learnt your part as quickly as possible, and everything was a great thrill to be asked to sing at Covent Garden, to asked to sing at Glyndebourne in the early days, you know. But as you got older, it became a little more difficult. But also, as you got older, you began to sing and learn other bigger roles, like Wozzeck by Berg, the 12-tone opera. Very difficult to sing, very dangerous to sing. And then there was Beckmesser, a part I loved. And quite honestly, it was my idea to finish with Beckmesser the beginning of last season, like a complete circle. Having started with Meistersinger, I wanted to finish with Meistersinger, but I was persuaded to finish with a happier note.
When we were talking about Don Pasquale, raised the point about your interest in television opera. Yeah. And you recall when we started Harlech Television.
Yes.
I mean, you had great desire to do operas, and I was fortunate to write the librettos for you. What was your principal enthusiasm there? I remember discussing that we were going to write the operas as if they were television programs.
I think
remember?
That
was
one
interest.
Terribly important that things, something new for television in the sense that operas were written for television, 1-hour operas. All right, we can have the great Aidas and Bohemes and things like that, but we must encourage, we must progress, we must encourage young composers.
Well, let's take the first one, because it raises a lot of interesting points, I think, about your performance. It's that one, The Mode of the Magician, Alan Hottenotted. Yes. And a very dramatic ending, where you're the magician whose lady has gone off with a tenor, so you're going to hypnotize her.
Yes.
And bring out this terrible plot.
The most difficult of all illusions is to elude the blades of death. Usually I undertake this act myself. Tonight, however, in recognition of his unusual talent...
You see, they're both hypnotized, as you said. And this is very difficult to put across in the sense of being hypnotized regarding this particular plot. But the worst thing of all is the timing. While you're singing, while you are governed by bars. It's not like an actor or actress who can take their time to illustrate something or to do a double take. We are limited within the governing bars of the opera. You see, I've got so many swords to put in this, to create the illusion, to put in this box. And in my mind, I'm saying, that's one bar gone, I must put that in now. The second bar's coming up, I must, put them in so that I finish. That there's no time left with egg on your face. This is where she does the dirty, you see.
And now I will reverse the process, and Angelo will rejoin us.
What a death.
Not nice.
What a death, not nice.
I remember you went and spent a lot of time with magicians learning how to do not only that trick, but
Oh, no.
you learned all that stuff with the flowers, remember?
Yeah, and also I used to bring fire out from behind my cloak and things. It's the beginning of the opera, this was, and bringing rabbits out of the hat and things. I worked hard to perfect those things. But when you succeed, you know, when you've done these and proven what you can do, it gives you a wonderful feeling.
Do you find, I was very much, during the next opera, which we see something of in a few minutes, the Christmas Carol, the Dickens, Norman
yes,
Kay wrote.
yes.
But when we were doing that, I wondered, actually writing it for you, whether you found it difficult at all singing in English, difficult to write in English for opera. Well, was Italian a favourite language? Or did it matter to you at all?
The easiest language to sing, naturally, is Italian. At least most singers will say this. But it's not difficult to sing in English. And I also think that when you hear things on radio or television, let us share the words. Don't let the orchestras drown what you're saying, or else people will lose interest. The libretto is as important as the music.
Well, in the Christmas Carol, of course, we won this wonderful prize at Salzburg.
Yeah, we were
which I
lucky.
personally, and nothing to you perhaps, but very important to me. But it got shown, of course, throughout the world because
Yes.
of our winning the prize. And there you played Scrooge,
Scrooge.
very much against your nature, character. How did you find it?
Well, very interesting, and especially when, you know, the Dickens play has been put on so many times.
Yeah.
We fought. Who was the man beneath the shroud? Who? Spirit? No, not Ebenezer Scrooge. Tell me I can change these shadows by an altered life. I am not the man I was.
This is where it's very difficult to do something like this, not seeing conduct or anything, especially on modern works.
In my heart, and keep it all the year. You see us Scrooge transformed, a man renewed, reborn. The ghosts of Christmas will live within me. My trade will be charity, my business all mankind. If you forgive me, the ghost great valley, and be faceless. My curtains, my linen, my candlesticks, all are here. The shadows of the future are gone. To all the world, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Boy, what's today?
Eh?
What's today, my fine fellow?
Why, Christmas Day!
Marvelous, wonderful. I miss nothing, nothing. I'll play a trick on Mr. Cratchit. I will.
Well, Geraint, there are two examples of your encouraging contemporary composers. But, you know, I think Kurt Adler said the other day in San Francisco that you had been responsible, the intendant at San Francisco, that you'd been responsible for bringing 40 British singers to San Francisco since you went there first. That's an awful lot, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, how did it happen?
well, in the early days, Richard Lewis went out to San Francisco first, and the first time I went out there, I went with him. Therefore, he showed me the ropes and things. Anyway, I felt that quite a lot of the people I was singing with, that we had as good, if not better, talent in this country. And but because they were Germans or Italians, there was a preference in a way. So I began persuaded the intendants, you know, when I knew what operas they were doing, and I would suggest the singer from this country. Even, I mean, if he was my best friend and he couldn't do the role, I wouldn't recommend him. But each singer progressed in the sense that each one added another and another, because each one was good in his part, in his role. And therefore Adler then believed in what I said, which was great. Also, it became company for me because I was on my own so much, you know, around the world.
Did the same process work, say, in Vienna or Salzburg or in Paris?
In Salzburg, yes. I spoke to von Karajan, and one or two singers went there. I remember one season there were 5 British singers in Salzburg. The first year that I went there, I was the first British singer to sing a major role. Now, before that, Murray Dickey had sung in Salzburg, the Scotsman Murray Dickey, who became Herr Kammersinger in Vienna, with a great career.
Well, I saw your Figaro in Salzburg twice, certainly, which I suppose is the greatest honor for a Figaro singer there. But I did have a look at a recording of Non più Drive from Mozart's Marriage of Figaro, which you recorded a long time ago, because I'm interested to see what you think of it.
Non vedrai farfallone amoroso, notte e giorno d'intorno girando, delle belle trovando il riposo, narcisetto guadagnino d'amor. Delle belle trovando il riposo, narcisetto guadagnino d'amor. Non più avrai questi bei pennacchini, quel cappello leggero e galante, quella chioma, quell'aria brillante, quel vermiglio d'onesto.
Geraint, I mean, it's beautifully sung, but I must have seen your Figaro, I suppose, 30 times over the long period. But I don't think of that as being your Figaro at all. I mean, what did you say is not your Figaro about it?
Well, I mean, what you must remember there, that aria is sung to Cherubino. In this particular scene, I was singing it to the camera as if the camera was Cherubino. Therefore, there was a devil of lot missing. There's, you know, as much as we love or hate that camera, there are certain things it cannot do. It cannot bring out something within you to sing to a blank. Therefore, I agree that it lacked something. It was I could have been singing it in this suit, you know.
How would you define the changes in the Figaro you've sung over, well, it was over 30 years?
Well, I possibly have done over 500 performances of Figaro. The change came actually when Fischer Discoeur and myself, we were discussing this particular time in the opera, in the third act. And I felt that Figaro was much more of a revolutionary Figaro. And I wanted to get this over. And I said to Edita, I said, shall we try this out here? Because I felt there must be a confrontation between the Count and Figaro. So we sent the others home. We were rehearsing, naturally. And we said to the producer, Selner, next morning, was a great theatrical producer in Germany, will you watch this and tell us what you think? And we did this, which we'd rehearsed the following evening, the evening before. And he said, great, keep it in. And in a way, that was the beginning of the turning point of my revolutionary theatre, because before I just played him as a gay, nonchalant person.
I know you, I'm sure, remember this evening. I didn't know you then, but in 1961, in Vienna, I happened to be doing some work there. I managed to get tickets for this Figaro that was held to be very special. It was the night, the first occasion which the Chancellor of Germany had been to Austria since the war. And there was this Figaro von Karajan was doing at the Staatsoper, and I'd never been there before. And you were the Figaro. Do you remember that night?
Well, do you know, a week before that, my contract had finished, and I did my last performance with Karajan. And as we were walking off the stage saying good night, cheerio, and what have you, he said, oh, by the way, he said, what are you doing next Saturday? I got to think. I couldn't think for a minute. I said, oh, nothing. Oh, well, I want you to come, and we're having a gala performance of Figaro. I said, well, Maestro, I said, you know, I'm doing a television, what was I doing, face-to-face with John Freeman, I think, which went on, I know, till 11 o'clock, which meant I couldn't fly over until the next morning. So I was taking a chance. I said, Maestro, you're taking a chance. I take that chance. And believe it or not, there was fog the following morning. I arrived in Vienna at 3 o'clock. I was shaking, thinking I would never get there. So the performance came, and what a performance. A performance that could never happen again. It was like champagne. You know, for instance, De la Casa was the Countess. Let's see.
I think Senor Uranats.
Senor Uranats was a Cherubino. She hadn't done it for about 5 years.
Some amazing Barbarina.
Cervenka was the Bartolo. Irmgard Seyfried was Barbarina. I mean, what a cast.
Yeah, and then we had Wächter.
Wächter, Herr Baron was the Count, you know. I mean, there's something that would happen once in a lifetime. You know,
well, I remember, but I do remember it very vividly because everyone there, these great Viennese favorites, and Wächter particularly, they would simply march up to the footlights and let fly, you know, and carry and tremendous enthusiasm. But you actually were acting the part, even in that company where nobody else seemed to care at all what they were doing, just singing for the audience.
You know, I tell you now, because you were there, you remember that they played the German national anthem, and that's the only time when I felt a shiver down my spine, because I hadn't heard that being played since I was in the war, right? Now then, and I thought about, thank God, wounds healed, you know. And when I mixed with people that I was singing with, you forgot about the years before, the nasty years before.
How did you find singing in Vienna? Was it something that awed you?
Well, playing Papageno terrified me there. It's like taking coals to Newcastle. I played Papageno in Theater in Wien and in the Staatsoper. And after, I remember the first night, I came off stage and I was like this. And I went to von Karajan and said, Maestro, I cannot do this again. I cannot. He said, I hear you were very good. I am chief here, you sing it. And I sang it for the rest of the performance. But that was nerve-wracking. Especially I had to learn Wienerish dialect, you know. And I remember when in Theater der Wien, when I went and saw the Papagena for the first time, well, that was the best double take I've ever done. She came out of this nest, and there I saw the briefest bunny girl that I've ever seen in my life. And I looked at, my God, you know, she was beautiful, absolutely. So I scored there, anyways, for one thing.
Of all the great roles in Geraint, which would you think in the future you're going to look back on and think, well, that was me. That's what I loved most. Would it be the Figaro?
From a sentimental point of view, yes, because Figaro started me off, really, and I loved Mozart anyway. If you can sing Mozart, as Fritz Busch said, you can sing anything. But Falstaff, to me, was the part that I wallowed in.
Why was that particularly, do you think?
He was a great man, I think. He was humorous. He was a devil. He wanted to die with his boots on. He loved the ladies. He wanted money. I mean, he was everything that we all think about.
Well, do you think you talk as if you think of him as a Welshman rather than an Englishman?
I think he was, actually. A romantic Welshman.
Do you wish there'd been a Welsh opera, an opera in Welsh you could have sung?
I think it's about time that an opera was written in Welsh. After all, we sing in Italian, we sing in German, and I think that an opera should be written especially in Welsh. We have our Welsh National Opera Company. Otherwise, you can call it any opera company, really, but it's the Welsh National Opera Company. But possibly things are in the making for bringing this about.
Has it been very important to you that you were a Welsh singer as much as a British singer?
No, I think music hath no bounds, and wherever we went in the world, or whatever I sang, I felt I came from any country, anywhere, and music embraced all peoples, because music was an international language, and therefore I always did my best. I felt I was an ambassador. I behaved, I sang as best as I could, and I think that is terribly important.
Do you see any way in which you can continue to do that? Now that
I think possibly the thing, I look around for young singers, especially singers, that was my profession, and if I can do anything to help, I do. I've just been working with a young girl now, going to do her first role of this particular opera, and it was most enjoyable, especially when they are enthusiastic and they want to learn. You know, that's the important thing, that they want to learn, and these people that want to learn and go at it,
Geraint,
can't stop them.
thank you very much. And we'll finish with that playing, you mentioned at the beginning of the program, of the Hen Wlad van Hadau, the Welsh national anthem, The Land of My Fathers, at Covent Garden. And I think I speak for everyone, and thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr.